The Book of Lost Names, the man who wished like a god, and the woman who committed an unthinkable crime. I never should have read that book. It was an old, dusty thing I found in an antique store. The names of all the wives of King Solomon. 2,000 pages filled with nothing but names, endless names, stretching across centuries. I picked it up out of curiosity, just to marvel at the sheer number. But curiosity quickly turned to something darker. Jealousy. It made no sense. King Solomon had lived thousands of years ago. These women were long gone, mere shadows of history. And yet, as I flipped through the pages, my pulse quickened, my hands trembled, because I saw her name, Sarah. My girlfriend's name, written among the countless wives of Solomon. At first, I tried to be rational. It had to be a coincidence. Solomon had so many wives, of course some modern names would appear. But my gut told me otherwise. That night, I confronted Sarah, demanding an explanation, though I had no right to demand anything. She only laughed, brushing it off. "It's just a name. You're being ridiculous." I wanted to believe her. I tried to forget, but I couldn't, because when I picked up the book again, her name appeared a second time. I snapped. This wasn't random. I confronted her again, more aggressively this time, but she repeated the same thing. There are bound to be repeats. It's a long list. Something was wrong. Then he moved into town. A man named Orlan. Mysterious, powerful, feared. He wasn't just some ordinary stranger. God answered his every wish. If he wanted something, it happened. Instantly. A storm could turn to clear skies at his command. Money appeared in his hands. People he disliked simply vanished. And Orlan was evil. He took pleasure in destruction and torment. Our town suffered under his whims, people vanishing or suffering at his cruel amusement. No one dared to cross him. But Sarah was different. She wasn't afraid. One night, she asked Orlan where he had come from, what made him so special. He smiled, his eyes gleaming. "One of my ancestors was a wife of King Solomon. Long ago, he made a deal with God. One of her future descendants would have all their prayers answered." I felt my stomach drop. Sarah's name in the book. Orlan's ancestor in the book. It was the same woman, Sarah, and I searched the book for confirmation. And there it was, his ancestor, a woman named Irelia, recorded among Solomon's wives. She had been promised a descendant blessed beyond measure. And now here stood Orlan, the result of that ancient bargain. But if Orlan was her descendant, then so were others. An entire bloodline, scattered across generations, across continents. Sarah challenged Orlan to a fight, taking him to a forgotten village in a distant country, a place filled with people who had no idea they were part of an ancient, cursed lineage. She faced him in the center of the village, the people watching in fear. "Let's make this fair," she said. "Leave them out of this." Orlan grinned. "You care about these villagers? Fine. Then let me destroy them for you." His voice rang through the night as he bellowed, "God, erase these villagers and all their ancestors from existence." And then Sarah smiled. Orlan's grin faltered. "Why are you smiling?" Sarah took a step closer. "Because these villagers share your bloodline, Orlan. They are the descendants of Solomon and Irelia. You just erased your own ancestors." Orlan staggered. His skin paled. His hands trembled. Then he began to disintegrate. His flesh turned to dust, his voice strangled into nothingness. The villagers, too, started vanishing one by one, their bodies dissolving into the wind. Orlan had doomed himself with his own wish, and Sarah had led him straight to his end. The air grew silent. The village was gone. Erased. I turned to Sarah, my chest tight, my voice barely a whisper. You just committed genocide." She didn't respond. She only looked at the empty land where a village once stood, where people had lived and breathed. And for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Not of Orlan, but of what she had done.